Hello, guildmates. My character's name is Spnanon, and I'm currently a level 122 podcast host. I joined in January of 2018, and my alignment is Space Ass. I'm here with my party member Nord, regular party member Nord, and co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself and your build.
Hello, I'm Nord. I'm level 72. I have been specializing in multi-class options as of late so that I have multiple talents I can contribute to the team.
As well as
I have optimized my build, of course.
Is there anything else you want to throw out there?
No, that's it. Thank you.
As well as our one-time escort mission guest, Spooktacle. What is your character?
Greetings, I am the Dark Summoner Spooktacle. Dark things are on the way. Dark things.
Is that it? Are you an NPC? That's your one line as we escort you?
Dark things are on the way. Dark things.
And today we'll be tackling yet another mission or episode even on the SPNatI quest line. Strip Poker Night at the Inventory. Let's get right into it. And don't worry, Nord and Spooktacle won't be doing those voices the entire time, I hope. Now I'm worried. But now I will say that our intro gimmicks are not usually on any kind of theme for the rest of the episode. In this case, they kind of are, because we have two console RPG characters, one a main roster edition and one a brand new testing roster character. And in between them, perhaps even double teaming them, we have the Fuda pair, Sanny and Tess, who are from Wikipedia, known for info dumps. In their case, specifically about Fudanari, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's get right into it with the preliminary round here. The tutorial, which is a main roster character, which Nord and I have discussed in detail already. She hasn't gone through too many changes, but she has made it to the main roster. This is a character written by Storm, who wrote Trixie the Goblin. There you go, another RPG reference. Dungeons and Dragons tabletop. And art by Just Kidding, who has been on the podcast a lot and also does a lot of scrimblos from RPGs. Don't worry, we'll get to those in a coming episode. But this is, Velvet from, I think it's Tales of Vesperia?
Berseria.
I got that wrong again. I think I made the exact same mistake when we introduced her for testing. I knew it was one of them, Vesperia and Berseria, because they sound very similar. But yeah, she's from that one. She's the one with the big fuck off demon arm. We talked about her in her much nicer looking swimsuit also, at least in my estimation. It was much nicer here. She's kind of dressed in rags and belts and other such things. But she still has the big fuck off demon arm. She made it to Maine. Spooktacle, you have not given your thoughts on the podcast before. What did you think of Velvet?
First of all, I don't know if it was just the two testing games I played with her, but she felt very hard. That may be intentional, I don't know. But also, something that I feel was somewhat a missed opportunity is I don't think she has a clothed butt pose. However, after reading that, I did realize why she does not have a clothed butt pose. Because those prison rags, which is apparently the source of them, are way too complex. It is very much a JRPG design. And I made this be weird for doing clothed butt poses. Anyways, closing thoughts on her. She is really flirty. I want to have banter with her. I very much hope that we do have banter by the time that this episode comes out. And now on to one of you two.
Yeah, so I should point out her name. Her full name is Velvet Crow, by the way, and I never feel qualified to summarize her backstory or character premise because I feel like it's pretty out there. But long story short, she's like very serious because she was like betrayed and her village was destroyed, and she takes things very seriously. Not to mention she was cursed with a big fuck off demon arm. But over the course of the game, she does kind of warm up to you and become a lot more romantic and romantically inclined and pretty flirty. But Nord, what were you going to say?
If Spook felt so inclined, I'm sure he could volunteer to make the clothed variations of that for Storm and just kidding. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Although in the earlier stages you wouldn't get to see anything because of the cape in the way as well.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why I was surprised that there is no cloaked butt pose, because you have stuff blocking a lot of the detail, but then there's the expectation for the clothed butt poses to continue, which causes difficulty down the line.
In terms of my notes for her, I'm just going to go over what's different from when I played with her last. She was very fun, and when we last played with her summer costume, she was very fun still. On main, she is pretty much the same as what she was before. Something that I hadn't actually gotten to trigger before is that for her forfeit, she thought about Eleanor. In the past, when I've done this, she thought about me, the male player. This time, she decided to think about her party member instead. And they were party members. On that note, though, something I did notice is I played her in a test game with Zeke and Pandy, and I confirmed after the game that she doesn't have any tandem taglines at all. Now, I'm not going to demand that every character have those necessarily, especially if, as a developer, you either don't like it or you just don't know what your character would say. But for Velvet in particular, I feel like it's a good opportunity for her to reveal more about what she'd want if she was in a, tandem situation. Because I already saw part of that with what was happening with her fantasies with Eleanor. So it's potentially something that Storm, as the writer, could explore in future if he feels inclined. After scrutinizing her, I don't have any art critiques still. Just Kidding has done a great job overall with the art and posing up to the end.
I remember when she was on testing and we covered her, I remember feeling frustrated with myself somewhat that I wasn't able to very easily summarize her. Like, I felt like I couldn't get a good read on her. That's still kind of true. I'm still trying to figure her out after several games played with her. Art-wise, and this goes for the writing too, but just like as a presence overall, she feels very placid and oddly withdrawn from everything that's going on until like there's suddenly like something kind of flips a switch in her and she becomes very romantic instead. She wants to like claim you as her mate, Normally I'm all about the stoicism cracking, but I feel like I never like quite understood what triggered the change. I don't know if it's nudity or what, but she just becomes sweeter and sultrier as well. It is pretty player focused and it's pretty romantic at times. Not bad things. I just felt like I didn't understand like the character reason, like why and like what's the creative choice behind that. And even now, I don't quite understand. And I never really liked the very visually noisy and busy kind of raggedy design. And I was a lot more positive on her when we covered her alt skin, the summer one, because her hair is like actually like it's not full of flyaway hairs. It's like done up in like a bun or a ponytail or whatever it was. And she was actually wearing like not just tattered clothes. And she cleaned up very nicely, I thought, and I thought she looked a lot more appealing like that. And I think she looks a lot more appealing naked as well, because a lot of that visual noise finally gets cut away, and she looks perfectly good underneath. So yeah, I guess that's what you come to see is her naked. So it's you'd rather she looks better naked than clothed, since that's the direction you're going in. Writing wise. She had a couple interesting lines that kind of hinted at some interesting social perspectives. Like she asked, shouldn't the queen be higher than the king? I don't know if she's just a radical feminist or what made her say that. And there was some kind of prompt she had. I don't remember exactly what the context of this was, but something about birds flying, or likening something to birds flying, or perhaps like what is birds fly? It's in their nature. So like, what's in your nature, or something like that.
Yeah, she has a couple of prompt situations where she asks pretty open-ended, like, spiritual questions. So characters can react either just with confusion, like, what are you talking about? Or can, like, try to give their own earnest answer.
That's my reaction to half the things she says. It's like, what are you talking about? She feels, like I said, very withdrawn from the game, especially early on. She's just kind of in her own little world. People call May a stoic, but I feel like she's at least paying attention to what's going on, or she feels present, or in the living present. Velvet's kind of wistful in a way. Let's see. Yeah, she feels so separate from everyone else. I wrote down. There's no clear like sequence or through line where you learn like the key information that you need to really understand who she is. I feel like it's all illusions. As good as illusions can be, sometimes you do need to like nail down specific things about her that you kind of at least get the gist of what's going on with her overall. The last thing I noted is that when she did get more flirty, she really started hyping up her wife skills. Not just her sex appeal, but I think like, I don't know if it was making clothes, but I think cooking was a big thing she went on about, how she was a very good cook. I don't know how she learned those skills, if it was in her village or what, if she just fries the food with her big fuck off demon arm. But yeah, so if you're into that, if you're into the trad wife archetype and you don't mind her having a big fuck off demon arm, then Velvet may be your ticket to success. Certainly not a bad character. I just feel like even after all these games, I still don't quite have the read on her that I should. So maybe think about really hammering out some of the absolute most important bullet points and making them a lot more common. Do either of you concur or have other thoughts before we move on?
I wonder if she'll get more costumes and if they'll also be a lot more straightforward in design than her default outfit. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to top that.
I think I like her having messy hair more than the neat bun, but that's my own personal taste.
Now I'm thinking of like an April Fool's character, like Compression-chan. Just like has a, just like if just absolute, just some random design with like a bunch of like mishmashed colors and gradients all over the place that compresses terribly. Just the most visually busiest character on the roster. Every pose is like a megabyte. Anyway, speaking of megabytes and data and information and getting a read on the situation, you know who's not too hard to read is Sanny and Tess, the fearsome Fuda duo, who've made it to the main roster as well. It was the last of Umboro's Hamon, because he decided that was going to be his. He's retired as a dev too, for the moment at least, and but he really wanted. I mean, he was the funny Fuda guy on the server. Everyone knew that he was a big Fudanari fan, and he made these characters originally as April Fools. And I described them back when we talked about them on testing. They kind of had a lot of the April Fool's residue because they're very focused on like they are just Fuda characters. That's their thing. Sanny has no testicles. That's why she's called Sanny, and Tess has testicles. But that's the only difference between them. And of course, they have big, massive girl cocks that come out, and they're not too they're not too great at hiding that fact. They pretty much just want to throw right away to get to that point to bring them out, and then they pretty much just talk about fun Fuda facts the whole time, and talk about the history and use of Fudanari art and its cultural relevance. And something we also got to mention, I mean, it's kind of related to them. It's very related to them making the main roster in the first place, is what I've dubbed the Fuda Fiesta, which is, in order to make that happen, not only did we need to make whole new generic cases, but we needed to retrofit at least a decent chunk of the currently online roster to have Futanari lines for at least for the penis reveal and all that. Some are more elaborate than others. Some are just like male lines with the pronouns switched. But it was a big investment because, the majority of characters in this game, of course, are abandonware now. I mean, they had active developers at some point, but everybody moves on eventually, allegedly. So, I mean, it was a big effort, just like the mods going through, even on the main roster, and doing the best they can to make it so at least a reasonable chunk of the roster would interact with Sanny and Tess properly. Because if that weren't the case, then they were not going to be allowed onto main. And Omboro took great pains to facilitate that upheaval of the game in order to make it even possible for them to come on. So this has been a long journey for them. And we covered them coming on testing, I think, like well over a year ago. They finally made it.
The idea was to try and get as many characters on main as possible to have Futa lines before 2025. That unfortunately didn't come to pass because more of the community was inactive and unable or unwilling to be able to update the characters to support it in that sort of time frame. Not calling anyone out specifically, but just it is a bit hard to push people to update a character for a new feature in a way that you can't just check a box to update them. You have to write new lines or reattribute existing lines. There was a major push by a former podcast host and former dev mod, Namasp. He went through a lot of characters, got permission for everyone who, he would need permission from them to update, and updated a lot of the characters just to have even just basic Futanari support so that they can react to other Futanari characters. Then
he went on a frenzy in the weeks leading up to Sanny and Tess making main because I guess he had some free time.
Yeah, I have the sheet here with me showing the coverage of it. Currently, with all of the newest characters included, there's a 73% coverage of the main roster as having Futanari lines. Some characters have partial support, some of them target Sanny and Tess specifically, others are just entirely abandoned and would need a manual update, and maybe the developer's still around and still could do it themselves, and we're not really trying to push them so hard to do the update if they're busy or anything like that. In general, though, I think it's fair to say that with nearly 3/4 of the main roster having Futanari support, there is the room now for more people to make Futanari characters. Getting a bit on a tangent away from Sanny and Tess, though, they are an interesting first showing for Futanari because it's a dual character, it's a 2-in-1 character. They show off two different kinds of it. Sanny is the main one. So you get one that's maybe covered by tags for the sans testicles one, and it's interesting to have them on the main roster now. There's actual, I guess you could say, hope for other people looking to make Futa characters. Now, the main limiting thing I would actually say is that Futanari tends to generally be a hentai specific trope. You get the occasional one-off hermaphrodite character, Kaine from Nier, who I'm almost certain we've mentioned before. That's mentioned as a potential character that could be made now. And it'll be interesting to see if there is an actual effort to, for now that they're an option to make Futa characters, will we get new developers coming in specifically wanting to make them?
Yeah, because that's the thing, the whole justification for, moving heaven and earth to get just Sanny and Tess, these April Fool's characters on main, was that if you, open the gates, so to speak, you can have, and make so much of the roster work or function with Futanari characters, then you can have more, potentially. Again, this is not trans support. So it's specifically the fantasy concept of Futanari girls. But yeah, I mean, in theory, people could make other Futanari characters, but in the years they've been that Sanny and Tess have been in the game, no one else has so far.
That was me done with my point. Talking about Sanny and Tess in general, I think they're pretty good if they stay as they are. I think the only issue might be if they still have some broken poses in some of their costumes. Onboro has retired from SPNatI development, and I think like in general he left a good legacy for the game. Like, not only did he do these two, but he helped with Sweetheart, and also did Korra, who Korra's pretty fun. I say completely and utterly biased as a Xenoblade fan.
He also, I'm also very grateful to him because he helped with Maya's new Cupid skin. But Spooktacle, what'd you think of Sanny and Tess now that they're on main?
First thing to talk about, I very much liked their aura pose. Solitaire didn't even have to censor that one, because it already is, and that's a joke. They do hop around a lot during their masturbation, which is distracting to say the least. Also, I should not have put Zeke and Pandoria right next to them, because during that, they were masturbating on Zeke's leg multiple times.
Oh my goodness.
There is a few characters that I am able to make due to them, that being Lychee from Monster Musume, and also a second gender swap costume for one of my characters who, well, you'll see down the line. Dark things are coming.
Oh, that wasn't just a bit.
Months or year down the line. I don't know how long down the line.
So I'll give my thoughts here. I've given my thoughts many times, and in fact, I was one of their final sponsors because they had kind of sputtered out on sponsorship, and I felt they were worthy of main in kind of their own unique way, which we'll talk about in a second. But art-wise, some of this is some of my sponsorship thoughts. Sometimes they were a bit mismatched with their mouths, like with who's talking. Like Sandy would have her mouth open, for instance, but it was Tess's line for the most part. And when they were forfeiting, when they're masturbating, I mean, they've staked their whole character identity on being Fuda girls. So obviously they jerk off their Fuda cocks, but their hands in the poses. You kind of have to make like custom hands to get it like show it like properly gripping the shaft, and like a lot of male characters do that now, but they're kind of old fashioned in that way. They just have like the fist over the shaft, and it doesn't quite look right for characters that are so defined by that. It would really help a lot to have less jank on that forfeit. It feels a bit inexpert. Of course, sometimes they do just fuck each other. I'm not sure what the trigger is for that. Oh, and a minor point as well. I think Tess's boobs are a little too close together. It's borderline invisible bra syndrome. They're a little too pressed together. On the positive side, they stake everything on their Fudacocks, and the animation where they like pull their pants down or skirts or whatever is very well done. How they kind of spring out, they spring up. I mean, that's kind of what you want and what you expect of a reveal like that. They hype up the reveal the whole time until they get to it, and they try to throw to get to that point quickly. Sanny's serious / WTF face is also super entertaining. And I keep mentioning, like, here, let me try to pull up. Here it is. Confuzzle, it's called. This is very entertaining when she pulls this out. But getting into writing, and this is kind of related to both art and writing and just creative choices in general. I mean, as a big Fuda fan, Onboro was always kind of adamant about like, the degeneration of language over time and how people apply specific terms to things that they really shouldn't. And he's adamantly against like the common vernacular, use of Fudanari today to mean what we would normally call, or what was often called like a new half, or people say like she-male as well, and then stuff like that. Less delicate terms, but basically just the fantasy concept of like otherwise completely female, but no female genitalia, right? Just a dick and balls. And he was, he's a more Fuda traditionalist, where you got to have the vagina there as well, the pure like hermaphrodite concept. Balls or no balls, but the vagina has to be there. And as far as like staking out a claim of like this is what Fuda represents in SPNatI, we do have a tag for just like penis, balls, no vagina, Fudanari, although that has not been used at any point. But he's definitely putting it out there like what he thinks Fuda should represent by having two characters that very explicitly have vaginas in addition to that. On the writing side, though, yeah, like I said, like they're very confidently like gimmick characters. They're all about how they're Fuda girl, and they don't really have anything else going on. I mean, they are just like literal Wikipedia stock image representations of Fudanari as a concept. And they used to be April Fool's characters, so they have a lot of info dumps, a lot of memes. They're very focused on that, and I think it works in that respect. Like this is kind of why I went easy on them in sponsorship, because it's just a really easy elevator pitch. Like, hey, this is a porn game. You want Fuda girls? Here's two of them. Like that's really all you need. You don't need like a ton of targets or complicated generic lines or a sequence or anything like that. Just here's their Fuda cocks. they're fun and peppy and they're Fudanari. I mean, that's what more do you need? And if they're only good for one play, that's probably what the player came for with them. And if you want to like write an actual in-depth Fudanari character, then take them from an actual source material that has a Fudanari character. So I wasn't really opposed to them being so simple. But minor thoughts as far as writing is concerned, I think they should, say if someone ever adopts them anyway. I think they could use more lines where only one of them talks. They do kind of fall into the trap of a dual character where both characters talk on every line. It gets a little tiresome. They could use more filters, more future proofing in general, since they're probably never going to have a ton of targets and banter and stuff. But you could at least target tags more. Something I didn't really appreciate prior, at least not as much before testing them recently, was how entertaining it is, and how much I appreciated their contrasting personalities. Sandy's a lot more opinionated, and Tess is more kind, more demure. She's she's the companion character. She's kind of in the background more so. She's a bit more thoughtful, and I think her head's in the clouds, whereas Sandy's more focused. And I appreciated that. Sandy questions things more, and Tess kind of goes with the flow. And I think that makes for a pretty nice dynamic that they have. They masturbated kind of fast. I feel like it was over quickly. Again, that's the big climax for them, literally. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to say was kind of what I got into before, which, they're ambassadors for Fuda characters as a concept in SPNatI, but they are ambassadors without any followers, because they have not inspired any other Fuda characters, any other projects in the quite a while they've been in the game now. I don't know, maybe it just doesn't have the reach that we think it does. Or I guess people like jerking off to Fuda characters, but they don't like doing deep dives into the psychology of it all. Who knows? I mean, furries are pretty well represented in the wider space, but you don't see too many of them in SPNatI either. Who knows? Well, Spooktacle, you had a nice segue if we're all done on Sanny and Tess here.
Yep, they had a line where they mentioned characters who did not have Fudanari art and were in the main and testing roster. But one of those that is mentioned in that line doesn't apply anymore. Not because now they have Fudanari art, but because they are no longer in the main roster, nor the testing roster.
Yeah, this is not a full segment. This is just a brief eulogy for Nugi-chan, the mascot of Storipu. .com, which was apparently a host site for a bunch of strip games. SPNatI was one of them once upon a time. Of course, this was SPNatI in its infancy, probably like 2016, 2017, but Nugi-chan was the mascot, and her creator and like the site host made her for SPNatI to put her in the game, and she was a face. She was around in the early days back when like Nagisa had the highest line count in the game at like 600. Arndress was her caretaker for a while, because the site host kind of left the project pretty quickly. But like at some indeterminate point in the past few years, Storipu.com went down completely. I don't know what state it's in now, and Nugi-chan was orphaned in pretty much all respects, aside from Arndress's occasional maintenance. But she was one of the oldest and crustiest characters in the game, and you can tell just by her proportions and her face. Not that I really know what she's supposed to look like on model. And but eventually, in recent times, even Arndress kind of threw up his hands and just put the project to bed and took her offline, citing how aged she had become, and considered her, I guess, below even the Buffy line. You know, the Mendoza line in baseball, like the bare minimum you got to be. Like Buffy is kind of that now for us, and Nugi-chan was apparently below that. She didn't move her legs very much, among other things. So yeah, I mean, rip to Nugi-chan. I can't say I ever really probably played with her more than once. She was not that interesting. Basically, just a maid with a big semi-drill hair, pigtails. Beta 69 once said that he wanted to eat her hair because it looks like cotton candy. In the past almost a near decade, that's about the most interesting thing about her in SPNatI. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts. She was old and busted even well before either of you came on.
I did play her. I don't imagine you did, Spook.
I was explicitly told I did not need to by you.
I just mean ever.
Yeah. I give her a test for this, and I do agree with pretty much all points that she is dated, and she shows it. Her art is just out of time, and her forfeiting dialogue like weirdly veers straight towards humiliation at the very end of like, oh god, I'm so embarrassed, yeah, sort of thing. She had an epilogue that showed similarly or like even more outdated models. There was a comment about one of them which was like I think it was called a rip-off Nami. I'm almost certain, like just guessing, that was added in after Nami was added for real, just to like be like, oh, it's not an incomplete Nami, it's a rip-off Nami, haha. Because Nugi-chan is so old, she never went through the sponsorship process, which means she is now condemned to the incompletes roster, which is at the bottom of the testing roster on your like offline copy. So she's double dead. I think it's just worth noting that Arndress, dev mod and person who was writing her, just retired her because he didn't really feel like having this character around anymore, especially given the owner of Storipu ended up going a bit off the deep end in recent years, from what I gather.
Exactly what I was going to say is that I think he's got other things on his mind anyway.
So yeah, I don't think Nugi-chan will be missed, but she is a piece of SPNatI history. I just don't think she has any fans in 2025 onwards.
Well, hey, I mean, if even the site that she's meant to advertise is now gone, then there really is like no reason to have her around. Sorry, honey. You are no longer employed at the inventory as a maid.
Yeah, that's what Kipitan's job, and will now forever be just hers.
Well, from old and busted to brand spanking new, our final topic for today is a new testing roster character from a new dev. You love to see it. This is Angela from Trials of Mana, which is apparently a SNES RPG that was in recent years given a full 3D remake. I guess in like the Dragon Quest style of like full 3D remake, sort of like the classic 2D art style, given like the cell shaded cartoony 3D look, and made anew. And I think she takes the design mostly from that 3D remake and a lot of the visuals, but a lot of creative cues as well from the old. She is a mage, she is a princess, and a bratty one at that. I'm told that Trials of Mana kind of has like a branching path where like there's characters do not specifically like be the protagonist or party members. You kind of like pick who's the lead and sort of follow their story and like pick who is your party member as well. So it's hard to say like exactly, or it's hard to summarize exactly like what role she plays because it can depend. And he's kind of had to thread the needle in all aspects there in terms of giving everything proper representation. But yeah, she's an attention-seeking princess. If you can't tell by the way she's dressed. And this is a dual threat, as you might want to say, because Heiha is his name, or Eha, or maybe it's Heja, I don't know. But he's both a writer and artist for this character, which is always nice to see, as I say, doing both art and writing in all respects. And she's certainly an ambitious project, but I will, I think, let the two of you take the stage in that regard, or take the floor. So Spooktacle, you can go first. What did you think of Angela from Trials of Mana?
Well, the first thing that I wanted to say was surprised that that doesn't mention the other Angela, but I am very incorrect, and I wrote down that I was expecting her not to, which I should have expected her to, and she does. She comments on the fact that both Angela. Anyways,
yes. So he's talking about Mercy from Overwatch.
Yeah,
Angela Ziegler. It's funny because like her folder name, Angela here, is Angela_TOM, which I thought that was her name, like Ruby Sue, Angela Tom, but no, that just means Angela Trials of Mana. Apparently to distinguish her from Mercy, but Mercy's folder name was just Mercy because who the hell calls her Angela? So currently nobody has the folder name Angela.
Yeah.
But
anyways, she is the first straight character since I've been following the game actively, as far as I'm aware at least. Anyways, with her masturbation, she does not show off much at the beginning, at least until she gets to her heavy masturbation. At the start, it's just constant W sit, and no showing anything below the waist. It does pay off in the end with her going into her heavy and the multiple images leading up to the final normal masturbation position with the knees up. But that's all.
She is a very difficult character to be able to find and post screenshots of just here for the purpose of the podcast, because her developer was very ambitious, and as a first character has made a character with a varying strip order, and not just to the degree of like, oh, there's one alternative path they could take. No, there's multiple variations that completely change the order, and as a result, so that she can fit within the file space, as I have shown by this screenshot, all of her assets apart from like her default cam pose for her like portrait and a couple of stripping poses is entirely done via the pose maker, which is a way of doing poses where you can overlay different sprites on top of each other dynamically. I initially couldn't really believe that a first-time developer had like pulled this off. in the sense that I had gone to them preemptively expecting that I would have to explain that they'll have to use scripting to even make this work properly. They had already done so. So they showed me. She's an interesting character. She's very haughty and full of herself. From what I can tell from her varying strip order, it's very much a gimmick of her reacting to how other female characters are doing in the game. She tries to like even things out if she's doing too well and other characters are topless, for example. In my game, she was one of the first ones to lose, so she just had her more conventional strip order.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said she was attention seeking. That's the whole point, is that she, if another girl gets her boobs out first, then she's like, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah.
And she inserts her boob reveal into the middle of what would otherwise be her normal strip order, and then continues along that line just with her boobs out now. So a lot of permutations. Yeah.
Overall, though, I did look at her up just to get more information about her from the wiki of the Mana series. And yeah, she's one of the protagonists of her game, so she is a big deal. I didn't really gather from the game itself that she was a princess, unless I missed dialogue related to that, just. I got that she was a magic user, of course. And she, in response to Hex Maniac being spooked by a hunter, even had a spirit come out to potentially defend people. But in general, she has a lot of potential. Oh, I really liked an animation she had that I can't show off, both because it's an animation and because it's made in pieces, where she's holding her own chest and like flaunting them. Fun character overall, but I will admit that from the perspective of thinking about SPNatI as a collaborative project and trying to interact with other characters, I have no idea how to approach Angela, and so far the developer has written hundreds of targeted lines to characters like, say, Mulan, although I'm almost certain a lot of those are false positives from her checking if a given character is present or not for her stripping gimmick. For example, having to check if Zeke and Pandy are in a later stage, because technically, Pandy's there, Pandy's a woman. Does she have her chest out? Gotta check for that.
With Mulan, it's actually because Mulan is not treated as a man, and he wants Angela to react to Mulan as if Mulan was a man until it's revealed, which is why she has 93 targets to Mulan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with this is that it's the opposite of future proofing. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't know, how long can you keep this up if there's a lot of conditions here, and if some other character in the future can come in and just, they got their own thing going on like Zeke and Pandy, and they just throw a wrench in the whole logic of it all. Like, I talk about on the writing guide about how it's generally better to just assume that, like, even if your setting doesn't have any magic, just to believe that other characters can use it, because say you're on a table with like 3 witches, then you're going to have that same, like, oh my god, magic exists reaction 3 times over. And it'll just feel like repetitive or nonsensical.
Unless, of course, you're making Seto Kaiba, in which case he just scoffs at it and is like, nice trick. But with Angela, it is a matter of, like, how approachable is this for other developers wanting to target her, or even her developer eventually wanting to, like, do banter with other characters. As I was sort of implying there, like, he hasn't really gotten into that as far as I can tell in terms of, like, actual back and forth. I did try a little bit to start with, but I'm really just not sure where to go. It would be helpful if the developer was able to make, say, like a flow chart or like some sort of diagram to indicate how her different orders can go and what the conditions are, because that would help, like, help to be able to know like what conditions do you actually need to target to be talking to Angela like coherently. Overall, though, it is a great like first effort for art and even writing. Just needs more of talking about herself and less about the game or what other characters are doing. She needs to talk about herself more. That about wraps up what I have to say about her, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'll start my end with the writing and the premise angle, because we've gone a bit into it already, but yeah, talk about ambitious in terms of the strip gimmick. Like, yeah, this is going to be your first effort for a character. And I mean, as far as what he wanted to accomplish, he definitely pulled it off. Now it's just a question of like, what do you do? Like, is this just it? Is she just going to be the character that dynamically gonna like gets her tits out, or is there going to be something else going on here in terms of character? Because like I can't argue with the premise. Like, it's sort of it writes itself in terms of porn. Like flirtatious, attention-seeking runaway princess who's mad at her mom and dresses skimpy. And really wants the men to notice her, and is jealous of the other girls, and gets her tits out. Like, well, I mean, there it is right there. Like, there's your sales pitch. You want to talk about having a good one. And like, she definitely plays up many of those aspects. She's fun. She's bratty. She could use some more italics to get that across at times. There is like some random stuff in there as well, like maybe some canned lines or like from the source material that it seems like there does seem to be some effort at play, or in play like in terms of targeting other characters. I did see just like her targeting, just starting conversation with a few of the other characters that are sort of on testing or sort of being developed at the same time as her at the moment. So that's a good thing. Despite how it may be difficult to respond or to target her because of her varying strip order, her making an effort to target people is good. But yeah, Spooktacle kind of mentioned it as well, but she is, as I wrote, capital S straight TM. I am straight. I, Angela, Princess of Altina, am straight. And don't you forget it. This was worse when she first came on, but she very much was like voiced her displeasure at having to watch all the other girls at the table strip. She is 100% not interested. Okay, and it doesn't even seem to be like a closeted bisexual in denial. So many characters are written in this game to be bisexual just for the sake of not being a downer, really, because it's a bunch of girls for the most part. And I mean, the most common setup is male player and 4 other girls. So most of the time you're going to be watching other girls take their turns and strip. And if you're just bored by the whole experience and don't want to be there unless it's a guy stripping or you stripping, then that's a whole lot of dead air that you got to make entertaining somehow, despite them not being into it. And people have made admirable attempts, and I do think she's gotten a little better with feedback. But yeah, she was pretty negative at first, and I think you need to spin that in positive directions. Even just her talking about herself, or sort of like a "you go girl" type of thing. Just anything better than just her moaning about being expected to play with these other girls. Like, what did you expect? I mean, Jura, for instance, really likes attention too, but I mean, even ignoring the whole like bisexual or lesbian culture, whatever, she teases them. She's coy with them. She tells them to really put on a performance. So I think you need to go into that direction just for positivity's sake, because that's more fun. I mean, I expected, like when it did come to be like a man's turn, I expected greater interest than what we actually got. I mean, if you're gonna put all your chips on only being into guys, then she's got to really turn up the flirtiness when it is a guy's turn. And she she was interested, but not enough to justify not being interested in girls, is the way I would put it. And it was a lot of like telling and not showing, like, I sure am more interested in this guy over here. Hey, now we're talking. It's the guy's turn. Like, you need more. You need more. And that kind of leads to what I was talking about, into what I was, my other big critique of her writing, which there's a lot of I guess. There's a lot of like lines that feel like a new writer who doesn't really know what to put for like this boring case. So instead of anything that really adds character, she's just like, well, guess it's the next round. Guess that happened or whatever. Stuff like that. And she could use some more flavor. I mean, there is plenty of flavor to draw from with her being this runaway princess who's mad at her mom. So you gotta play up those aspects instead, and how that would inform her perspective. You need to fill out a lot of the larger cases.
I think for targeting tags, an early mistake can be making a character overly dismissive or something, or just not, like, basically make a comment to the effect of, I'm not engaging with that, which doesn't really add much. The two ways you tend to approach things to good success, I've found, are either doing yes and or no but styles of writing a line. Like targeting an occupation tag, you should only really do it if your character has something you can conceivably think of them to say about someone's profession. Like, for example, if a character is a cleric and they bond with other clerics or something, or they have a, reverent reaction to character tagged as deity, you can build off of that because your character may actually have something to say. I feel like it's not really no purpose, but it's a bit of wasted effort to specifically call out a tag just to be like, I'm not interested in this tag, or I'm not engaging with this tag, unless you have a specific in-character reason where, like, say they hate a given tag attribute, if that makes sense. I feel like Angela suffers a little bit from that sort of problem with some of her tags that she targets.
Yeah, there's like parts of the dev process. Again, I'm really impressed that they did both the art and the writing, but it seems like there's things that they really liked focusing on and working on, and then there's other things that they just kind of threw up their hands because they didn't really know what to do to make that entertaining. But yeah, she could use some more lore by the end. I wrote that down as well. A little bit more about what's going on in her game. She did have some awareness on like hand lines and stuff that there was someone masturbating near her, especially a guy, of course, and that was good. And I'll go through art notes as well to finish things off here. Her hair asset, she has like a lot of custom drawn assets here. The train on her dress, she told me that's what it was called, and her hair bangs. Like there was a lot of very fast, very quick improvement, both art and writing wise. Like it's always a big litmus test when a dev first comes in with a project and people start giving them feedback, how well they respond to that and how quickly they take that advice to heart. Because most of the time when they listen, they improve very quickly. And they have very definitely passed the test there. I was impressed to see their ambition and their willingness to learn, and she improved rapidly in terms of like how she looked and like in terms of like source accuracy. So it looks very good, like the hair asset and all that, but it did need some gravity because she like tilts her head very far, and it kind of stuck out from her back. That was a bit weird. She has a janky laugh animation that she uses a bit when she's laughing at someone.
That is actually from the game.
That's what I was about to say. It's like, yes, it's from the game. And he talked about how he took that straight from the game. But it does really stick out visually compared to everything else she has going on. And that may be a question of like, yes, it's from the game, but you have to pick and choose about what you take from the source material and if it really fits and how you might want to adapt it.
I definitely think it was for the best that he stopped making them loop endlessly.
Oh God, did it do that before? That would be really distracting.
In the initial drop, I'm pretty sure they did, or they had a lot of like repeat counts, but now it's only a couple of frames and then it stops, which is less distracting.
And some other things here, she should have more flirty poses, really turn up the heat. Again, if you're going to really go all in on like flirting with the guys, like she has like a nice pose where she like, there's the one where she bounces her boobs or the one where she blows a kiss. That's fun, but go even harder on that. If this is your angle, then fucking go for it. Don't do any half measures. She has default nips. That was a shame. We talked about that with Rin a couple episodes ago. And for a character that's so boob focused, she has a whole gimmick about when she brings her boobs out and how it changes, but the boobs themselves are not really that visually interesting. They're just like default nips. And because they're like a custom asset for a lot of her stages, they don't have proper undershadow. It's only when all the roots merge back together at the end when she's naked that they get a shadow underneath the boobs again.
She doesn't really have custom body detail in general, as opposed to everything else being custom. So I think that stands out a little bit more. Might be worth the dev getting some feedback on that to set a lot. Like, there's a lot of different approaches people take to the nude bodies these days. Maybe the dev just needs to find their own way of doing it or copy from someone else.
I mean, she's cute, she's pretty, she's attractive, and seems to resemble the source material. But yeah, you could definitely do more with her visually. I did like that boob handling animation she does, but I felt it was also very easy to miss, ironically, because it didn't loop. But the animation is not that extreme. The movement is not that extreme, so I always only ever caught the tail end of it when she did it. No butts, ? Megamind, puppy dog eyes, no butts. Seems to be a very boob focused character. No butts. Can't even see her butt when she's masturbating because she doesn't bring her knees up. Spooktacle already complained about this, but yeah, I was shocked and horrified to see her masturbation. After all that flirting, she just gets super embarrassed, and her knees are together for the entire thing. You can't see her pussy. You can't see her hand. You can't see anything. You can't see anything below her belly button. It's awful. It's lame. LAME. I wrote in all caps. Lame. That's the absolute worst thing you can be in any artistic endeavor is lame. Fucking lame. Lame. Change it. Get those knees up, baby. I mean, at least it stops when she gets to heavy, but like if you're willing to bring them up at some point, then just have her do that for the entire forfeit. It's fine. Let me fucking see something. Come on. I mean, I could potentially have been seeing her boobs for like the entire game, her entire strip sequence, and now that's like the only thing I can see when she masturbates. Come on. I mean, if you want her to be embarrassed and bring her knees up at some random point, you can use like ticks and stage, where it's the amount of times you click the advance button, and just give it like 4 ticks, and then she brings them up because she's suddenly not embarrassed anymore. That would be okay, as long as it's like most of the time you can see something. That'd be okay.
Something else you could do is have the knees together and up. So like you can see them, you can see the pussy, but she's more protected. Would be a nice middle ground.
Mix it up. Mix up the body language. As soon as she started the forfeit, she just kind of fell off the face of the earth for me because there was nothing to look at.
Yeah, something to keep in mind is that when you're adapting stuff for this game, particularly like the character's personality, obviously like 9 times out of 10 you're having to tweak them anyway to participate in a game like this. So don't have them completely chicken out at the end. Glancing through her file here, there may be an issue where she's supposed to open up for her heavy forfeit, but there's maybe I can't tell if this is handled in a global case or not, but there's a way of making it so that their heavy state lasts longer and would do what it looks like they're attempting to do, where her knees are up for longer, but I don't know if it triggers properly at the moment. I'll have to check that after the podcast, actually. I've only just found this from poking around in her file.
I will throw some praise her way for the alt skin she just got at the time of recording. Angela Magus, which I guess is a very provocative alt skin that she has in Trials of Mana as well. What in the hell is she wearing? It's like...
Armor.
Oh, I mean, not much, but like, certainly gets your attention. But this is pretty ambitious as well, and I think this even inherits the dynamic strip order. So nobody can say this is a low effort project. There was a lot going on here. But yeah, kind of what I said about like a Hex Maniac last time. I think like the general impression she gives is overall pretty solid. You just kind of got to fill out everything in between. Very promising though. Very promising first effort. Maybe try something a little simpler next time, just for your own sake. Yeah, very impressed with this character.
Yeah, there's always that risk when you come in making your, magnum opus as your very first character. There are some bumps you'll have to get over. But overall, a good first showing, to be sure.
Well, I think we've reached the end. So, Nor, it's Spooktacle now that we've we successfully completed the escort mission through these two podcast episodes. I mean, do you have any final thoughts?
Will you ever recover from Nugi-chan being offline?
Look, what was the date that it actually happened? I want to make a 9/11 never forget to.
Jesus Christ. I don't remember. I forgot.
Well, good show.
Well, a successful mission. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm looking forward to in the future completing the epilogue skill tree. Now that we're all finished, what loot did you guys get?
Oh boy, 17 gold, and it's an equipment I can't use in my class. I'm gonna greet it anyway.
Spooktacle, any rare drops?
Something dark comes this way.
I got a rock.